Hey guys, Tyro here bringing you the 7th installment of micro tips and tricks for Company of Heroes 2. First up we have when to chase and when to stay stationary when fighting retreating squads. When using squads with bolt action rifles such as grenadiers and conscripts, in my opinion it is generally better to stay stationary whilst firing, as the fire on the move penalties are very punishing for these weapons. If your squad's LMG can't be fired on the move, you will also want to stay stationary, and even if it can be fired on the move, unless it's a bar, you'll probably also want to stay stationary. When a squad is retreating, consider their retreat path. If they are going to round a line of sight blocker, obviously this will cut short the amount of time your squad has to fire at them. In these cases I would recommend chasing the squad around the obstacle, even with bolt action rifles, to maximize the amount of time your squad has to fire at them. Units with semi-automatic rifles such as riflemen can either chase or stand still as viable options. Once again, consider their retreat paths. If there is negative cover, you may want to chase them to it, then stop whilst they cross it to maximize your damage. When it comes to submachine guns, their accuracy drops sharply with range, and their firing on the move penalties are low. This means it's best to chase whenever possible. If you have two squads in your enemy's retreat path, what you can do is run in front of them and block their retreat path, allowing the second squad to fire upon them for a much greater period of time. Obviously it's best to do the blocking with the low damage squad and chasing with the high damage squad whenever possible. This does take a lot of micro, so be careful you're not losing everything else whilst attempting this maneuver. Next up we have crushing infantry with tanks. Here we have some tables of stats for several different tanks from the excellent website stat.co2.hu. Generally speaking, currently the Panzer IV is considered not to be very good at crushing, the Sherman is alright, and the Cromwell is overpowered. Here we can see the differences in speed, acceleration, but most importantly, rotation rate. Rotation rate is the key to what makes vehicles so good at crushing. So what you don't want to be doing is driving straight into a squad out in the open. This will simply cause the infantry to split up and run out of the way, evading your crush attempts. The aim is to come down towards one side, which will push the infantry closer together, and then once they are all herded onto one side, rapidly turning into them. So here it is all put into practice. I come down the one side, and then once they're all pushed onto the one side, rapidly turning into them. I didn't quite nail this example. It is possible to squish them a little bit earlier on with less turning. As you can see, it is very micro intensive, making it unlikely you are able to control other units whilst attempting the crush. So make sure your other affairs are in order so you're not losing your entire army whilst furiously trying to crush the squad. Crushing can be easier to do on a road because of the movement speed advantages they provide to vehicles. It is also much easier to crush if the squad is already clumped up, such as if they are standing in cover. Even vehicles that are poor at crushing due to their slow speeds can be very effective when infantry's pathways get blocked by obstacles such as walls or buildings. The benefits of trying to crush go beyond simply running over infantry. By forcing the squad to clump up so much, the tank's main gun can deliver some devastating hits. Also, if the squad has an anti-tank weapon, by constantly driving at the model with the gun, forcing them to move around will disallow them the chance to set up and fire it. And that neatly links to our next topic, using vehicles to push infantry. So here's the scenario. You're trying to push into a region with a squad behind heavy cover. Even though light vehicles cannot crush heavy cover, if you run into it at speed, the models behind it will reposition out of cover, allowing your follow-up squads to do full damage and suppression, making your push much easier, or at the very least adding to his micromanagement load by forcing him to reposition into cover. Here's another scenario where an enemy squad is trying to enter a garrison. By driving back and forth in front of the door, you can delay their entry to the building. This is useful if you have a squad nearby racing for the building, or if you're doing suppression or heavy damage to the squad and you want to keep it going as long as possible. Note that after a long enough delay, the order to get into the building was actually cancelled, which would force your opponent to reissue that command. That's it for this installment guys. Be sure to like, subscribe and share it with your friends, but not with your enemies. Also, I'd really appreciate some more support on my Patreon page, as these videos take me a really long time to produce, otherwise I'm going to have to stop making them.